So 2023 has been a big year for video gaming. Between Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, and now Starfield, everything's looking hunky-dory and rosy. This is a great video game industry, right? Maybe except for the fact that it's about to completely collapse. Hey folks, it's Doug from It's All Doug in Games, and boy, I imagine you probably by now heard the news or read about it in social media, Twitter post, on Facebook or Instagram or MySpace or LiveJournal or Only Farmers or wherever you get your information these days. So the good folks at SAG-AFTRA, which of course stands for the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Recording Artists, most people know SAG-AFTRA is the union for the, I'll call it the legacy TV and film industry in the U.S. Well, they also represent the performers in the video game industry, whether they're voice performers, on-screen performers, artists, so on and so forth. And they have a contract, SAG-AFTRA, with the video game industry, and it's called the Interactive Media Agreement. Now, this agreement has been due for renewal, but there seems to be a stalemate between the union and the biggest game publishers. We're talking Activision, Blindlight, Disney, Electronic Arts, Epic Games, Formosa, Insomniac, Take-Two, VoiceWorks, WB Games. So collectively, these 10 companies represent the overwhelming majority of, we'll call it the big budget video game industry, an industry which, not for nothing, is actually larger than the TV and film industry in the United States by a wide margin. So it was really interesting to me when I was looking at basically the 6 main points of this new agreement that seems to be at a stalemate. The 2 biggest and most important, in my humble opinion, and I believe what are the sticky points, exist. And most importantly, the biggest sticky point, which to no one's surprise, is pay. So the SAG-AFTRA union folks are looking to fight for parity for the video game performers with their counterparts in TV and film. It actually blows my mind that for an industry that is demonstrably larger at this point than TV and film, these performers are typically paid less. Which is, again, it's crazy to me. So the first important point that seems to be a sticky point is a wage increase for the video game performers, an 11% retroactive raise to get some sort of parity between these industries, and then a 4% increase in maybe the second or third years of a new agreement to account for inflation. And we can have an inflation talk some other time because that gets into all sorts of politics, but suffice to say, that seems like a pretty common sense thing to me. But again, the video game industry is pushing back and saying, we are not looking to pay you the same that your counterparts in a smaller industry are making. So there you go. The second big sticky point of the 6 sticky points there involve artificial intelligence. And so what does that mean? Artificial intelligence protections around consent, control, transparency, and compensation. Now, there's a lot of different interpretations, but here's how I interpret this. Let's give you an example. I am someone who has in the past worked as a voice actor. There are some commercials that you might hear on the radio in the Midwest for furniture stores that have my voice to them. So there you go. So you may have recognized me from somewhere other than YouTube or the guy that plays Wordle on that other channel. But anyway, I digress. So let's say, for example, that a big company like Activision wanted to hire your old pal Doug to be the voice artist for a character in a new IP that they're creating, the first game in potentially a series. And part and parcel of that is I'm going to read about 200 pages of dialogue, a wide range of emotions and tone and inflection, not only fulfilling the primary task of giving you that particular character their voice, but also, by coincidence or happenstance, a definitive library of Doug's voice. So why is that an interesting point? Well, we're at a point with technology today that we weren't even at just a few years ago, where the possibility could exist that big company, if this first instance of a game takes off, becomes popular, and justifies any number of sequels, what's stopping that big company from taking that library of my voice and training an AI to be me for the next 5 games? And that means potentially I get cut out of fair compensation for my voice being used in all these games. That is a very real concern that the voice actors in this industry have voiced, and again, protections that this industry has been reticent to agree to. So that's a really big deal. What's stopping them, without union protection, without a union operating agreement protection, from getting together and saying, hey, all right, so here's the deal. Everybody's voice contract is going to be very clear that we're allowed to do whatever the heck we want with that recording that they gave us, which, includes using it to generate new fake AI Doug for forever. I mean, that's quite frankly ridiculous and unfair to the folks that give voice to these games that you enjoy. Look, I know AI can do these sorts of things, but in my humble opinion, and I don't think I'm necessarily being protectionist or trying to speak in the best interest of a revenue source I have as a person, but I just don't believe that AI can actually create voices with feeling, with soul, that invoke emotion when we're reading a script. Hey, maybe again, I'm just being biased. Let me know in the comments if I'm crazy or not on that point, but I just don't see it. So it seems rather silly to me that these large companies would be so greedy as to refuse such protections to the voice artists, without which they really don't have AAA games. They don't have games that can truly create an emotional, interactive experience for their audiences. Again, I realize those same big companies most likely don't see it that way. Actually, they definitely don't see it that way, because if they did, they would have already signed this agreement. The fact that they haven't, and have pushed SAG-AFTRA to vote to authorize a strike if they don't come to the table and sign this agreement before, I believe it's September 25th, as we're recording this, it's September 5th, so 20 days away. Obviously, a strike will occur, and then it becomes a big game of chicken. And I think that's what's happening here. I think that these big companies have decided, they've done their own calculus, and they believe that they can win a war of attrition, that they can win a big game of chicken with the creatives, without which they can't really do what they want to do. And that is so absolutely compelling to me, because I'm reminded the very first company on that list of companies that are party to this interactive media agreement is Activision. And let's think about this. For those of you who might be a little younger than me, or a younger generation, you may not realize this, but Activision didn't just come into existence as a $50 billion company out of thin air. Activision only exists because a group of creatives at the then Atari Corporation in 1980, 1981 were sick and tired of being underpaid and underappreciated. And they broke off and they started Activision. So that is not lost on me, the deliciousness of this situation. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. If this goes on and this becomes a big high-stakes chicken game, you are literally going to see a situation where Activision is going to Activision itself. That's right. Let's think about, what does a big AAA game mean? A big AAA game mean a big budget, potentially $100 million, but that's because that company is fronting the pay for hundreds, if not thousands, of voice actors, live action performers, artists, developers, you name it, soup to nuts. So what happens if we get into this big strike and it's just a stalemate and it goes on for a long time? Do you really think that all those creatives are just going to sit there at home, cry in their lattes, and just be poor or go homeless or something? No. You know what they're going to have? They're going to have this amazing technology that didn't even exist back in 1980, by the way. It's called computers and internet technology, the ability to interact with each other. They might even start something called a Discord and talk amongst themselves and say, you know what? Maybe the next AAA title is not from the benevolence of Activision, maybe we bet on ourselves and pool our resources and our creative energy together and make it ourselves and self-publish. And then whatever they choose to call themselves, Activision Junior, Activision 2.0, I don't know. It's just some creative name. Let me know in the comments what the Activisioning of Activision should be called. And that is potentially going to be that pivotal moment, that garage days moment from the 70s and 80s, where a new generation of video game publishers are going to come along, formed into little studios that do cool games and come together, and they are going to make these big boys extinct. That list of 10 companies I said, good luck. If you think you're going to win this war of attrition in an age where everyone you're trying to nickel and dime and screw together is just going to sit there and take it and not make the decision to pool their resources, bet on themselves, and put you out of business, you're absolutely nuts. You're going to be left with a bunch of suits in a corporate office that don't have a creative bone among them. What are you going to create, Activision? Are you going to re-release compilations of Atari games for the next 20 years? Are we going to get, just remakes and remasters with slight graphic tweaks to the same games you've sold us a dozen times before? Let me know if I'm crazy in the comments below, because I know some people are going to agree, some people are going to disagree. Variety's the spice of life. Remember, let's just keep it clean, kids. No ad hominem attacks. Just let me know what you think. And of course, as always, I thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy hearing me muse about the video game business, video game collecting, retro games. And as always, we'll see you next time on It's All Dug in Games.